Good afternoon, Sharp Shades. I hope you're having a good evening. I feel like it's been forever since I've done a screencast because all your division ladders were ones from last year that I did. So, welcome to my first screencast in 2017. So, I hope so far that you're enjoying doing fractions. I know we're just now getting into it. But today we're going to be talking about equivalent fractions. And we've been talking about this a little bit in warm-up and with your number talks. So let's talk about more in depth about equivalent fractions. So first thing I need you to do is get out your math journal. Hopefully you remember to bring your math journal home. If not, I hope you're doing it on a piece of paper that you are going to be able to glue into your math journal. Okay. So, let's title today's page Equivalent Fractions. Okay. First of all, what does the word equivalent mean? It has a word in there, or close to a word, it sounds like a word, that we've used several times. Equal. So equivalent fractions are equal fractions. So in class during warm-up, we showed how to make equivalent fractions using pictures. You may have remembered, like we did 3/4 and we had our bar. And I do want you to be drawing this because remember, if I have it, 3/4, remember when we do it into 4 parts, that means 3 lines. So if I'm going to have 3/4, I'm going to color 3 in. And there's my 3/4. And this is the important part. If you're using fraction bars to find equivalent fractions, you have to make sure that your fraction bars are the same size. If they're not the same size, it's not going to work for you. And now, let's see how many eighths we have. How many eighths equals 3/4? So there's my fours. Well, I know eighths, I can cut this in half and I'll have 8 parts because 4 is half of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now, if I color in all the way up to where my top one is, I colored in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6/8 is equivalent to 3/4. So that's the way we've been doing it during warm-up and in class. So we do have 2 other ways that we're going to do it. One is what I call kind of my shortcut way. And then 2 on a number line. I'm not going to show you on a number line during your screencast tonight. We're going to do that in class tomorrow and do a lot of practicing because we'll have number lines. So you'll be able to practice with the number lines in class, okay? So let's talk about my shortcut way. So when you want to find, this is really important, when you want to find equivalent fractions, what you need to remember is whatever you do to the numerator, you do to the denominator, okay? So before we actually get into equivalent fractions, actually review your notes because hopefully we wrote this in our notes. I have it planned to do it on Monday before you're watching this to find out what am I talking about when I'm talking about the numerator? What am I talking about when I'm talking about the denominator? So just check that real quick in your notes. Remember what a numerator is and what a denominator is. Just in case we didn't get to it today in class, a numerator is the number that's on top of a fraction, and that's the number of parts. And the denominator is the number that's on the bottom of a fraction, and that's the total number of parts. Okay, and we did talk about that a little bit with warm-up. So let's use that 3/4 again. So I have 3/4, and I want to make, let's forget about the 3/4 for just 1 second. In your journal, I want you to write star, underline, whatever you do to the numerator, you must, in capital letters, do to the denominator. Okay? So now let's take that 3/4. And let's figure out how we got 6/8. Well, what do you notice about these two numbers? What did I do to both of them? Well, hopefully you could see, to get from 3/4 to 6/8, I multiplied them both by 2. 4 times 2 is 8. 3 times 2 is 6. So that's what I did to both. So as long as you remember, whatever you do to the numerator, you must do to the denominator. And when I say that, I'm referring to either multiplying or dividing. Okay, it doesn't work for adding and subtracting. So I'm not going to go, because if I did that here, 3/4, and I added 2, and I added 2, I would get 5/6. Well, 5/6 is not 6/8. So that doesn't work. So when I refer to whatever you must do, it's either multiplying or dividing. So sometimes you're going to see a number and it's going to ask you to give you equivalent of fraction. Well, if that's the case, you get to choose what you want to do. So if I give you the number like 3/7, and I say to find the equivalent fraction, each and every one of you is probably going to have a different equivalent fraction, because I could do whatever I want as long as I do it to the numerator and the denominator. So let's say I want to multiply them both by 4. So 3 times 4 is 12. 7 times 4 is 28. Well, that means 12 28ths is equivalent to 3/7. Those two are equal fractions. Well, I could do it backwards too. Let's say I have 12 28ths and I want to find an equivalent fraction. Well, now I'm going to divide both of them by 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 28 divided by 4 is 7. So now we get 3/7 equals 12 28ths. Okay? So that's my little shortcut. Now there's going to be times where you might have a number like 6/8 equals blank 16ths. And you have to find the top number. Well, the first thing you need to do is find out what did they do to the denominator to get from 8 to 16. Another reason why it's good to know your multiplication and division facts. Well, I know they multiplied it by 2. So 8 times 2 is 16, which means I have to do the same to the top. 6 times 2 is 12. So 12/16 is equivalent to 6/8. And that is how you find equivalent fractions. As long as you can remember, whatever you do to the numerator, you must do to the denominator. Let's put in parentheses here, multiplication or division, so you don't get messed up. Okay, your keyword today is going to be floor. Keyword is floor. Okay, let's do a couple of practice problems. So what I would like you to find the equivalent fraction for is 4/5. 4/5 is equivalent to what? Now, like I said, you're all going to have different answers. So you come up with an answer that is equivalent to 4/5 and then restart the video. Okay, I'm going to do mine. I'm going to do 4/5. I'm going to multiply them both by 3. Because I know I can't divide, because there's nothing that goes into both of them evenly. So 4 times 3 is 12. 5 times 3 is 15. So 12/15 is equivalent to 4/5. Okay, so Here's your next one. This one I'm going to give you a number. Let's go to 2/4 is equivalent to something 16ths. So figure out what I did to get from 4 to 16 and then do the same to the top. Okay, so I know 4 times 4 is 16. So now I'm going to multiply the top. 2 times 4 is 8. So 2/4 equals 8/16. Now, we talked about this, and I don't know if you remember, but whenever your numerator is double your denominator, it's equal to 1/2. So here you can see 2 is half of 4. So 8 is half of 16. So they're all equal to 1/2. So if you have a number that's half, the numerator is half the denominator, remember the one that you find equivalent should also be half. The numerator should be half of the denominator. Okay, let's try one more, and then we'll do some practicing in class tomorrow. Let's go with 3/5. Find me an equivalent fraction. Ooh, it's raining outside hard now. You guys are in the computer lab right now on this rainy Tuesday. Okay, so what did you get? I'm going to do, you know what? I'm going to go wild and crazy. I'm going to multiply them both by 9. So 5 times 9 is 45. 3 times 9 is 27. So 27/45 is equivalent to 3/5. Okay, so there is equivalent fractions for you. Have a great afternoon, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.